The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of trapped bees. But no one noticed the noise anymore. Not the nurses, not the doctors, and certainly not Jamie Carter, who stood frozen in the waiting room, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. He'd seen things in his 22 years fights in back alleys. His father's fists. The way love could burn and break, but nothing prepared him for this night. It started with a call at 3 a.m. His phone had vibrated on the nightstand, pulling him from a dream where he was running through a field with Elias, their hands brushing as they laughed. The voice on the other end was Nurse Clara, her words sharp and urgent. "Jamie, you need to get to Street. Mary's hospital. Now. It's about Lily." Lily. His 9-year-old sister. The girl who'd once tied a rainbow ribbon in her hair and told him, "I'm gonna be just like you, Jamie, brave and free." He'd driven through the dark, the rural Virginia roads slick with late autumn rain, his beat-up Chevy rattling as he prayed he'd misheard Clara. A baby. How could Lily, his little Lily, be pregnant? It was impossible, grotesque, a violation of everything pure in the world. When he arrived, the hospital was chaos veiled in calm. Nurses moved with practiced efficiency, their faces tight with something unspoken. Jamie pushed through the double doors, his leather jacket still damp, and found Elias waiting for him. Elias Monroe, the man who'd stolen his heart 2 summers ago in a dive bar, when a shared glance over cheap beer turned into a kiss that changed everything. Elias's dark eyes were red-rimmed now, his hoodie sleeves pulled over his knuckles as he whispered, "They're operating on her, Jamie. They don't know if she'll make it." The words hit like a fist. Jamie grabbed Elias's arm, steadying himself. What happened? Who did this to her? His voice cracked, raw with rage and fear. Elias shook his head, his own grief mirroring Jamie's. "They're not saying much. Just that there's something wrong. Something they found when they started the delivery." Street. Mary's was a small hospital, the kind where everyone knew everyone's secrets, or thought they did. Pine Hollow, Virginia, wasn't a place for big scandals until now. Jamie and Elias had grown up here, 2 boys who'd found each other in a town that whispered sinner behind their backs. They'd fought for their love, endured the glares and the sermons. But this was different. This was Lily, the girl who danced at their makeshift commitment ceremony in the woods, giggling as she tossed wildflowers. Dr. Helen Vargas, the head surgeon, emerged from the operating room, her scrubs speckled with blood. Jamie's stomach lurched. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady but heavy. "Lily's stable, but we need to talk. Privately." She glanced at Elias, who nodded and stepped back, though his hand lingered on Jamie's shoulder. A silent promise, "I'm here." In a cramped office, Dr. Vargas laid it out. Lily had been brought in by a neighbor, Mrs. Dawson, who'd found her collapsed in her backyard, bleeding and incoherent. The pregnancy was a shock, but what they discovered during the emergency C-section was worse. There was no baby, Dr. Vargas said, her eyes meeting Jamie's. It was a massa tumor, unlike anything we've seen. It's not cancer, but it's abnormal. We're sending it to a lab in Richmond for analysis. Jamie's mind reeled. No baby. A tumor. He thought of Lily's bright smile, her love for comic books and fireflies. How could this be happening? Is she okay? He managed to ask. Dr. Vargas nodded. She's strong. But we need to know how this started. Jamie, has Lily been exposed to anyone? Anyone who might have hurt her? The question hung like a blade. Jamie's thoughts raced to their stepfather, Roy, a man with a temper and a drinking problem. Roy, who'd moved in after their mother died, who'd always seemed too interested in Lily's comings and goings. Jamie's fists clenched. "I'll kill him," he whispered. "Dr." Vargas placed a hand on his arm. "We're involving the police. But right now, Lily needs you. She's asking for you and Elias." Back in the waiting room, Elias was pacing, his dark curls falling into his eyes. When he saw Jamie, he crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled him into a hug. "What did she say?" Elias asked, his voice muffled against Jamie's shoulder. Jamie recounted everything, his words stumbling over the horror of it all. A tumor, not a baby. A mystery that felt like a betrayal of everything they knew. They sat together, waiting for permission to see Lily. Elias's hand found Jamie's, their fingers intertwining. "We'll get through this," Elias said, his voice fierce with love. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Jamie nodded, but the weight of the unknown pressed down on him. What had happened to Lily? And what was the thing they'd found inside her? As dawn broke over Pine Hollow, casting pale light through the hospital windows, Jamie felt a spark of hope. Lily was alive. He and Elias were still standing, their love an anchor in the storm. But the truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered, and it would change everything. Jamie and Elias sat in the hospital's pediatric wing, the air thick with antiseptic and fear. Lily was awake, her small frame swallowed by the hospital bed, and 4 lines snaking from her arm. Her eyes, usually bright with mischief, were dull, but when she saw Jamie, she reached out. "You came," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Of course I did, kiddo," Jamie said, forcing a smile as he took her hand. Elias stood beside him, his presence a quiet strength. Lily's gaze flicked to him, and a faint smile curved her lips. "Elias, you're here too. Did you bring me any comics?" Elias chuckled, though it sounded strained. "Not yet, but I'll get you the best ones. Promise." He pulled a chair close, his knee brushing Jamie's as they sat. The room felt too small for the weight of what they were facing, but being together made it bearable. The police arrived an hour later. Officer Daniela Ruiz, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, asked to speak with Jamie alone. Elias stayed with Lily, reading her a story from his phone to keep her calm. In the hallway, Officer Ruiz didn't sugarcoat it. "We're investigating Roy," she said. "There's evidence he's been abusing Lily. Neighbors reported seeing him leave her alone for hours, sometimes days. We're also looking into medical records, something about experimental treatments he might have been involved in." "Treatments?" Jamie's voice rose, his hands shaking. "What kind of treatments?" Ruiz hesitated. "We're not sure yet. There's a clinic in Richmond, some off-the-books operation. Roy's name came up in their files. We're digging deeper." Jamie's mind spun. Roy had always been a shadow in their lives, a man who'd married their mother for her savings and left them with nothing but pain. But this, experimenting on Lily, it was monstrous. He thought of the tumor Dr. Vargas had described abnormal, unlike anything they'd seen. Was it connected? Back in Lily's room, Jamie told Elias everything. Elias's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists. "If he touched her, we don't know yet," Jamie cut in, though his own anger burned just as hot. "But we're going to find out. For Lily." The next few hours were a blur of tests and questions. Lily was too weak to say much, but she clung to Jamie's hand, her trust in him unshaken. Dr. Vargas returned with more news. The lab in Richmond had preliminary results. The mass wasn't just a tumor, it contained traces of synthetic compounds, chemicals not found in nature. It's almost like it was engineered, she said, her voice low. We're consulting with specialists. This could be bigger than we thought. Bigger how? Jamie wanted to scream, but he held it together for Lily, who was starting to drift off, her breathing steady. Elias leaned against Jamie, their shoulders touching. We need to get out of here for a bit, Elias said. Just to breathe. They stepped outside, the cool October air biting at their skin. The rainbow flag outside the hospital fluttered in the wind, a reminder of the fight they'd already won to be together. Jamie turned to Elias, his voice breaking. I can't lose her, Eli. She's all I have left of Mom. You won't, Elias said, cupping Jamie's face. And you've got me. Always. They kissed. A brief, fierce moment of connection amidst the chaos. It wasn't a solution, but it was enough to keep Jamie going. That night, they stayed by Lily's side, taking turns holding her hand. Jamie couldn't shake the image of Roy's smirk, the way he'd always dismissed Lily as trouble. Had he done this to her? And if so, why? The hospital was quiet, but the questions screamed in Jamie's mind, demanding answers that felt just out of reach. The next morning, Pine Hollow buzzed with whispers. News of Lily's case had leaked, and the small town was alight with speculation. Jamie overheard two nurses murmuring in the cafeteria about that poor Carter girl and some kind of science experiment. He wanted to grab them, demand answers, but Elias's hand on his arm stopped him. Not now, Elias said softly. We need facts, not rumors. They returned to Lily's room, where she was sitting up, coloring a picture of a superhero. This is you, Jamie, she said, pointing to a figure with a leather jacket. And this is Elias, saving the day. Her innocence cut through Jamie like a knife. How could he protect her from a truth he didn't even understand? Dr. Vargas called them into her office again. This time, she had a laptop open, displaying scans of the mass they'd removed from Lily. The lab confirmed it, she said. The tumor contained synthetic DNA, engineered to mimic human tissue. It's not natural, and it's not random. Someone did this deliberately. Jamie's blood ran cold. Roy? He asked. We don't know, Dr. Vargas admitted. But the police found records at that Richmond clinic. They were running trials illegal on vulnerable kids. Lily's name was in their files, along with Roy's signature. Elias's voice was sharp. What kind of trials? Something called Project Helix, Dr. Vargas said. They were testing genetic modifications, supposedly to cure diseases. But the side effects, they're catastrophic. Lily's tumor might be one of them. Jamie felt sick. His little sister, a guinea pig for some twisted experiment. He thought of the nights she'd complained of stomachaches, how Roy had brushed them off as growing pains. Had he known? Had he sold her to those monsters? The police raid on the Richmond clinic was happening that afternoon. Officer Ruiz told them later. We're bringing Roy in for questioning, she said. But he's gone off the grid. Any idea where he might be? Jamie shook his head, his mind racing. Roy had a hunting cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a place he'd disappeared to when he wanted to clear his head. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. I'll check it out, Jamie said. Elias grabbed his arm. Not alone. I'm coming with you. The drive to the mountains was tense, the Chevy's engine groaning as they climbed winding roads. Elias kept his hand on Jamie's knee, a steadying force. We're going to find him, Elias said. and we're going to make him pay. The cabin was dark when they arrived, but Roy's truck was parked outside. Jamie's heart pounded as they approached, the crunch of gravel under their boots the only sound in the stillness. Inside, they found Roy packing a duffel bag, his face pale and frantic. "You bastard," Jamie growled, lunging forward. Elias held him back, but his own eyes burned with fury. "I didn't know it'd go this far," Roy stammered, backing away. "They said it was safe. Just a trial. They paid me to sign her up." Jamie's fist connected with Roy's jaw before he could stop himself. "You sold my sister." Elias pulled Jamie back, his voice low but firm. "We need him alive, Jamie." "For answers." Roy crumpled, sobbing, as they tied his hands with a rope from the cabin. The truth was uglier than Jamie had imagined, but it was only the beginning. Roy's confession spilled out in the cabin, a pathetic mix of excuses and fear. He'd been approached by a man named Dr. Leland Price, a scientist running Project Helix. They'd promised him $10,000 to enroll Lily in their trials, claiming it was a harmless study to boost immunity. Roy, drowning in debt and whiskey, had signed the papers without a second thought. "They didn't tell me about the tumors," he whimpered. "They said she'd be fine." Jamie's hands shook with the urge to hit him again, but Elias's steady gaze kept him grounded. They called Officer Ruiz, who arrived with backup to take Roy into custody. As the police cuffed him, Roy muttered something about a flash drive hidden in his truck, containing files from the clinic. Back at the hospital, Jamie and Elias handed the flash drive to Dr. Vargas. She plugged it into her laptop, her face growing grimmer with each file she opened. "This is worse than we thought," she said. Project Helix wasn't just experimenting on kids, they were trying to create hybrid tissue, blending human and synthetic DNA. Lily wasn't the only one. Jamie's stomach churned. "How many others?" "At least a dozen," Dr. Vargas said. "Some didn't survive the trials. The ones who did, they're out there, with tumors like Lily's." Elias's voice was quiet but fierce. "We need to find them and stop this." Dr. Vargas nodded. "The police are shutting down the clinic, but Price is still at large. He's the key to all of this." Lily was recovering, her strength returning bit by bit. She didn't know the full extent of what had happened, and Jamie wasn't ready to tell her. Instead, he and Elias took turns reading her comics, making her laugh with silly voices. But the weight of the truth pressed down on them. They were in love, yes, but they were also warriors now, fighting for Lily and the others who'd been hurt. That night, Jamie and Elias sat on the hospital roof, the stars bright above Pine Hollow. "I never thought we'd be here," Jamie said, his voice soft. "Fighting some sci-fi nightmare." Elias leaned against him, their shoulders touching. "We're doing it for her. And for us. For the life we're going to build when this is over." Jamie turned to him, their eyes meeting. "You really think we'll get there? A life where we're not running or fighting?" "I know we will," Elias said, and kissed him, slow and deep, under the vast Virginia sky. It was a promise, sealed in starlight, that no matter what came next, they'd face it together. The flash drive revealed more than just medical records. There were names of other kids, other families torn apart by Project Helix. Jamie and Elias vowed to track them down, to bring them justice. But first, they needed to find Dr. Price. The search for Dr. Leland Price took Jamie and Elias to Richmond, where the clinic had been raided. The building was sealed off, yellow tape fluttering in the wind, but Officer Ruiz got them inside. The place was a sterile maze of white walls and locked doors. But the air felt heavy with secrets. They found a hidden lab in the basement, its equipment still humming. Vials labeled with numbers, not names, lined the shelves. Jamie's skin crawled as he imagined Lily hooked up to one of those machines, her body a canvas for their experiments. Elias's hand found his, squeezing tight. "We're going to end this," he whispered. Ruiz uncovered a ledger with addresses, safe houses where Price might be hiding. One was a warehouse on the outskirts of Richmond, and they decided to check it out. The drive was silent, the weight of their mission pressing down. Jamie thought of Lily, now stable but still fragile, and of the other kids out there, waiting for someone to save them. The warehouse was dark, its windows boarded up. Jamie and Elias crept inside, Ruiz covering them from behind. The air smelled of chemicals and decay. In a back room, they found Price, a thin man with cold eyes, surrounded by laptops and medical equipment. He didn't run, just stared at them, as if he'd been expecting this. "You don't understand," Price said, his voice calm. "We're saving humanity. These children theory the future." "You're a monster," Jamie spat, stepping forward. Elias held him back, but his own eyes burned with rage. Price laughed, a hollow sound. "You think this stops with me? Helix is bigger than one man. It's funded by people you'll never touch." Before Jamie could respond, Ruiz cuffed Price, reading him his rights. But Price's words lingered, a chilling reminder that the fight wasn't over. They found more files in the warehouse: names, dates, procedures. Kids as young as 5, subjected to horrors in the name of progress. Back at the hospital, Jamie and Elias sat with Lily, who was drawing again. She showed them a picture of 3 superheroes, labeled Jamie, Elias, and Lily. "We're a team, right?" she asked. "Always," Jamie said, his voice thick with emotion. Elias smiled, ruffling her hair. That night, they made a plan. They'd contact the families from the files, help them get justice. It was a daunting task, but their love for each other and for Lily gave them strength. As they left the hospital, hand in hand, Jamie felt a flicker of hope. They were fighting for a world where love could win, no matter the odds. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Jamie and Elias worked with Ruiz to track down the families from the Helix files. Some were grateful, others too broken to speak. Each story was a knife to the heart: kids like Lily, used and discarded by a system that saw them as data, not people. Lily was discharged from the hospital, her recovery a small miracle. Jamie moved her into the apartment he shared with Elias, turning their cramped living room into a makeshift bedroom. She loved it, decorating the walls with her drawings. But Jamie saw the shadows in her eyes, the questions she was too young to ask. One night, as they tucked her in, Lily grabbed their hands. "Are you going to get married?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. Jamie blushed, glancing at Elias, who grinned. "Maybe one day, kiddo," Elias said. "But we're already a family, right?" Lily nodded. Content. Jamie's heart swelled. Family wasn't just blood, it was the love they'd built, the promises they kept. The investigation into Project Helix grew, drawing national attention. Reporters camped outside the hospital, and Jamie and Elias became reluctant heroes. They didn't want the spotlight, but they used it to speak for the kids who couldn't. At a press conference, Jamie held Elias's hand, unashamed, and told the world about Lily's courage. Price's trial was set for the spring, but the bigger battle was against the shadowy figures funding Helix. Ruiz uncovered ties to a biotech conglomerate, but the trail went cold. Jamie and Elias refused to give up. They started a support group for the affected families, meeting in a community center in Pine Hollow. One evening, after a meeting, Jamie and Elias walked through the town square, the rainbow flag now joined by others, a symbol of solidarity. "We're making a difference," Elias said, his arm around Jamie's shoulders. "Yeah," Jamie said, looking at him. "But you're the real difference. You make me believe we can do this." Elias kissed him, right there in the open, and for once, the stares didn't matter. They were rewriting Pine Hollow's story, one act of love at a time. A year later, Pine Hollow had changed. The hospital had a new wing, funded by donations after the Helix scandal broke, dedicated to pediatric care. Lily was thriving, back in school, her laughter a daily gift to Jamie and Elias. The scars of her ordeal remained, but so did her strength. Price was convicted, sentenced to life for his crimes. The biotech conglomerate faced lawsuits, but Jamie and Elias knew the fight wasn't over. They kept the support group going, helping families heal and advocating for stricter regulations on medical trials. One spring evening, Jamie and Elias took Lily to the woods where they'd held their commitment ceremony years ago. The wildflowers were in bloom, and Lily ran ahead, chasing fireflies. Jamie stopped, pulling Elias close. "I want that life you talked about," he said. "The one where we're not just fighting." Elias smiled, his eyes soft. "Then let's make it happen." He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. "Jamie Carter, will you marry me?" Jamie's breath caught, tears blurring his vision. "Yes," he whispered, pulling Elias up into a kiss that felt like a vow. Lily cheered, running back to hug them both, her laughter echoing through the trees. As they walked back to town, hand in hand, Jamie felt the weight of their journey lift. They'd faced horror and loss, but they'd also found love fierce, unyielding, and true. The hospital, once a place of pain, was now a beacon of hope. And in Pine Hollow, under a sky full of stars, they were building a future where no one had to hide who they were. The truth about Lily's baby had shaken the world, but it was their love for each other, for Lily, for justice that would change it.